Welcome back to the second hour of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point. The network is AFR Talk, the American Family Radio Talk Network. Let's deal with a couple of sound bites from this morning. This is Lois Lerner, who, by the way, has a history. Lois Lerner was in charge of the IRS tax-exempt division that's responsible for all of this harassment that we now discover went back to 2009. We know that upper echelon figures in the White House knew about this well before the election, kept it under wraps. The IG's report on all of this misconduct by the IRS, that was done and available for publication last September. This administration buried it because they knew what it could mean for the results of the election in 2012. So you've got corruption, you have injustice, you have just plain wrongdoing here at virtually every level. And it was under this Lois Lerner that all of this harassment and persecution of conservative groups went on. Remember, we had an official from the IRS who admitted we didn't go after a single progressive group. Only people we targeted were groups that had Tea Party in the name or Patriot or were educating on the Constitution or wanted to improve life in America. We didn't go after a single solitary progressive organization. All of this under Lois Lerner's leadership. She was in charge of the division when all of this happened. Now, it turns out that prior to her coming to and this is one of the things that makes this is not accidental. It wasn't just some kind of bureaucratic snafu. She was at the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, before that from 1986 until 2001 when she came to the IRS. And she was the head of the enforcement division of the FEC for those 15 years. She was in charge of going after people, harassing, intimidation, using the power of the federal government to do it. So she was in charge of enforcement there, just like she was in charge of this tax-exempt division for the IRS. And while she was there in the late 90s, the FEC went after Christian Coalition, hammer and tongs, same kind of deal, these onerous requests for documents and other sort of supplemental material. Here is a piece on the Weekly Standard about what happened under her watch at the FEC with Christian Coalition. The FEC conducted a large amount of paper discovery that included 127 document requests, 32 interrogatories, 1,813 requests for admission, a total of 481 additional written answers that had to be provided. The coalition was required to produce tens of thousands of pages of documents, many of them containing sensitive and proprietary information. And some of the questions that they asked pried into what occurred at coalition staff prayer meetings, even into who attended the prayer meetings held at the coalition. Does this sound familiar? Remember, you got these same people under her leadership were asking this pro-life outfit in Iowa to divulge the content of the prayers of its members. When they prayed, what were the content of their prayers? As if that was any business of any part of the federal government. So there's a pattern. I mean, even when she was in charge of the FEC, they were asking detailed questions about prayers. Who goes to your prayer meetings? This position of intercessory prayer, what does that mean? Prayer warrior is identified as one of the people that's part of your team. What's a prayer warrior? What churches do people belong to? And what church and what location does Ralph Reed go to? That's where he was questioned. So anyway, a lot of other very intrusive questions. They even asked a bunch of questions of Oliver North, who was connected to Christian Coalition, same deal. So this woman comes by this Gestapo-like mentality, honestly. Here's what she had to say at the beginning of her testimony today. Everybody was looking forward to her being on the hot seat. She's the one that's got the answers. And she spoke for about 25 seconds. Here's what she said.
I have not done anything wrong. I have not broken any laws. I have not violated any IRS rules or regulations, and I have not provided false information to this or any other congressional committee.
So I've done nothing wrong. My hands are clean. I'm pure and innocent as the driven snow. And then she invoked her Fifth Amendment right. Now remember, the Fifth Amendment right is a right that protects you against incrimination. In other words, when you invoke the Fifth Amendment, you are admitting that if I were to answer and I were to answer truthfully, my answers would get me in huge legal trouble. If I answer truthfully, there's a good chance I'm going to be convicted of a crime. There's a good chance I'm going to prison. Therefore, I am not going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to answer any of your questions. And remember, this is right after she spends 25 seconds telling us how pure and how innocent and how incorruptible she is and how she's never done anything remotely wrong. I've never even squashed a bug. My hands are clean. I am the closest thing to moral perfection you will ever see in a government official. And then she says, I'm not going to answer a single one of your questions because I may wind up in prison if I tell you the truth. Now realize, and this is the point that Trey Gowdy makes, clip number 2. This is the point that Trey Gowdy makes. When she gave that opening statement, she was giving testimony. She was giving testimony. She was declaring her innocence. She was giving testimony, exonerating herself. So she had waived her Fifth Amendment right. And by the way, Jeff Reed, my producer this morning, hey, they finally found a part of the Constitution that they like. They trashed the First Amendment, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, trash that. Trash the Second Amendment, we'll take people guns away from them. Trash the Fourth Amendment, we'll go for your phone records, we'll go for the phone records of your parents. But the Fifth Amendment, that's a part of the Constitution. We love the Fifth Amendment. They're hiding behind that. And I forgot where I was going with all of that. But anyway, the point is she waived her Fifth Amendment protection. She gave testimony. And this is what Trey Gowdy is saying. He was pretty agitated. Listen to this.
Mr. Issa, Mr. Cummings just said we should run this like a courtroom, and I agree with him. She just testified. She just waived her Fifth Amendment right to privilege. You don't get to tell your side of the story and then not be subjected to cross-examination. That's not the way it works. She waived her right to Fifth Amendment privilege by issuing an opening statement. She ought to stand here and answer our questions.
And he's exactly right. He's exactly right. That's why people broke into spontaneous applause. What is up with that? You allow somebody that's in trouble, they get in, all they do is declare their innocence, and they leave before any of their statements can be questioned, before any questions can even be asked. She's out of there. And Trey Gowdy says, hey, wait a minute, not so fast. When she gave her opening statement, she was giving testimony before this committee under oath. So she forfeited her Fifth Amendment protections right there. And I, a lot of people think this, and I am with them. I think this is the problem. This is the problem that Republicans have. We are nice instead of good. We are nice when we should be good. Nice people never confront evil. Good people do. God has called us to be good. He has not called us to be nice, because good people will confront evil. What Issa should have done here, instead of being nice, he should have been good. He should have forced her to stay there, sit in that seat, after taking an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and she did. Should have had her sit there and let the members of his committee ask her whatever questions they wanted to ask her, whatever questions that they needed to ask to get at the truth, and then let her sit there and invoke the Fifth Amendment time after time after time after time. Issa let her off way too soon, way too easy. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back in 2.